Welcome to game number 1 of the grand finals of the KSL Summer Slam. In the top right of Ancient Cistern, we do have DKZ's Dark. And at the bottom left, we have Onside Gaming's Maru. So 2 Titans facing off against each other in a best of 7 finals. Maru displaying a lot of the forward 2-raxes nowadays. In fact, mostly what he does alongside a lot of the other Korean Terrans. And then the European Terrans are also being affected. And I have to imagine the North American ones as well, but we see just a few less games from them. Gonna have to wait for the regionals to see if it's infected that scene as well. And then Dark, right, has not changed styles all that much. He does do a lot of what he used to do. It's just a matter of what he's doing in each particular game. I mean, he's always been able to do Ling Banling. He's always been able to do Roach Ravager. He's always been able to come back from disadvantages. He's always been able to get the Wombo combo, Infester usage a bit more than any other Zerg. He's also certainly familiar with late game. And while he might not be the absolute best at late game, he is forced into that position, as I believe he has discussed how much he doesn't want to be in that position. But, there's only so much you can do. And when he gets into the late or even late game, he is not one to give up easily. He might occasionally look flustered or maybe not as smooth as perhaps Maru's late game in this matchup, but Dark does not give up easily. I recall a lot of games of his actually going down to the wire like 40 minutes and then 20 supply versus 30 supply, like really crazy games. But that is actually not where Dark himself says he feels comfortable, and it's probably, again, not the best, is a polite way of putting it, I suppose. Certainly the best late game, people just generally agree is for Cyril, but Dark has his moments, and if Dark had his way, then he would never get in the situation anyway. And he does often stop the situation from happening, at least in such a way in which he would not be in an advantageous position. He does try and, stop the Terran before they're really set up, which he's just a punch you in the face type of Zerg player. Maru, he's got that agility. He's got that build order notebook. His mechanics are fantastic. I'll often find myself looking at him and being like, oh, supply block, oh, 1,000 minerals, But he can be punched in the face, just like the rest of them. But this time it looks like he's actually going to try and punch Dark in the face. Dark, unbeknownst to him, right? There's a 3-racks going on here, so no natural command center. One of the follow-ups, one of the more dedicated follow-ups to the forward 2-racks. Now, the Overlord actually does at this point see no natural, sorry, and knows that something is up. But still, that 3rd hatch did come down. Perhaps the Reapers wouldn't have focused on it, and then it would have gotten up no problem. And instead, the Queens, the Lings, the drones over here would have been under pressure. But Maru actually immediately went towards that 3rd hatch as soon as he saw the drones in tension, and is going to get that cancel. There's really nothing that Dark can do about it, despite Dark actually doing a perfectly reasonable opener for a Zerg player. Not very greedy. Speed's going to finish at 3.5 minutes. Actually, not even. Maybe like 3:25. That's going to be good enough to give him speed in time for the Reapers to find no further damage in the main or natural. If this was a later speed by 20-30 seconds, those Reapers might have darted in and started harassing some of the drones or the Queens, like I was saying. But no, Dark now just needs a good number of Lings, and he has made himself a decent number, but actually capturing the Reapers is another question. The Reapers will manage to mostly escape. 2 of them do get caught in that high ground, and the reinforcements are coming. It does look like Dark has kind of started the snowball here in his favor. The Reapers are forced to completely evacuate, and that means that Dark can finally get his 3rd hatch back up and running, which he does about as fast as he can. First, he had to cancel it, then he had to make the Lings to chase down the Reapers, and then he had to build up 300 minerals again. So I think that was about as fast as possible. And that Stim is looking a little vulnerable, but to actually sacrifice the Lings necessary to get that kill when it's so early on in its development, probably not worth it. I mean, if he could get the kill when it's 90% done, that would be a lot better, but then there'd be a lot more Marines, and it probably wouldn't work out. Maru ensuring that will not be canceled, sends an SCV out to get the repair, and there is no further danger. Now, that actually is not something that Maru technically knows. This could be a Banling bust, but it's pretty much hoping that it's not. And the Reapers can help a little bit if that is the case, but yeah, a Banling bust maybe actually would have done something. We've been seeing Solar respond to a lot of these 2-racks openers with a later Ling Banling bust. Definitely not up against the 3-racks here, but I do wonder if it would have worked. We'll never know. Or not in this game anyway. maybe further down the line, if they all get all the way to Game 7, you could see a very similar circumstance. But actually, I think the variety of 2-racks follow-ups is probably more than 7, actually. Just with all the little tiny twists and turns that you have in it. Anywho, so Dark has successfully gotten his 3-base economy set up. He's trying to spread the creep, got some queens on the way. Maru is actually going to move out with a handful of marines, and that is only to pressure. He's not really going to dedicate here, pretty much figuring that there's a very small chance that Dark will have enough lings to totally conquer this army. And if he does, well, then that's a lot of not drones he was making. So it's definitely your pro move to do this. I would not advise doing it at home, guys. You're going to certainly screw this one up. But for Maru, he knows exactly the kind of ebb and flow of the matchup. And again, if there was 50 lings and a handful of banelings already, that would be not drones. And as long as he could survive back at home to any potential counterattack, he would actually still end up in the favorable position. That might be a question without a tank, but tank's on the way, more reinforcements, medevacs as well, and obviously Dark did not make that much army. He is trying to get to a decent economy. Not quite, well, I guess for 3 bases, he basically is. I mean, this is the max that you can get here, as you are mineral saturated at the very least, and gas isn't your main priority right now. In fact, your main priority is defending against this push. Now, combat shields is not here, but that is a lot of marines. They sim once, they see no banelings, and they maybe the queens. Not a whole lot of lings to protect them, but a decent amount of transfuses. Medevac's doing their job trying to heal. We got a lot of micro going on here. Another stun's going to have to be used, and that's a lot of orange and red marines very quickly. This actually goes sideways for the Terran as a medevac full of marines also gets shot down. Excellent control there from Dark. Very nice emergency management right there. And he just gets back to what he was doing, which is further creep spread and more drones. However, it does look like he might have a bit of a larva problem. At the end of the day, his 3rd hatch wasn't as fast as he would like. The 4th hatch as well, and not as fast as maybe it could have been. 4th and 5th being planted at the same time as that happened in this game. And frankly, 3 hatcheries only does so much when it comes to larva. So definitely needs the macro hatchery and definitely needs his 4th base to finish. He actually needs every single hatchery here. 1,000 minerals in the bank for our Zerg player is a terrible sign indeed. That's probably impacted the amount of drones he was able to securely get after pushing back that attack on the right side. Maybe he could be up to 70, 72 drones at this point, but now kind of stuck at 65 and still not able to spend all of his money. Centrifugal hooks is also not done as Maru has followed the aggression up with a 2-tank push. He is going into a 3rd CC, so this is not a 2-base all-in, but it is going to be still a decent amount of units. And in this type of placements, that 4th hatchery, obviously under a lot of fire, is going to be sacrificed. And Dark just is going to have to accept that, but perhaps for the greater good. That will, again, limit his larva production. So we really need to get another 4th base up and running. Burrow's on the way, 1-1 as well. Maru only going for a single engineering bay follow-up, as is typical nowadays. And that means that Dark will eventually have an upgrade lead, and actually it's about 30 seconds away. That'd be extremely helpful, especially as Maru finds another tricky position of these tanks. Dark now has centrifugal hooks, however, and he still has a lot of lings now coming forth here. The banelings do crash into some of the marines, and the medevacs are stopped short of being able to enter into that main base. Excellent placement from Dark, just basically preempting that. You know, he saw the setup, he knew exactly what was going to happen, and his queens were an excellent defense. That does mean they're not on the front line spreading creep, but there's active creep tumors still doing that job. So 4th base will finish up here. Liberator's coming in for a bit of harassment, and the queens are, as I just said, a bit out of position, but probably not going to get too many drones before Dark notices. 3. And some lost mining time. Also a distraction as the medevacs once again head into that main base. At this point, the queens have moved on, so they will be able to unload. Not completely, however. Maru actually got a mismicring for a second there. Saw something blip on this side of the map. Maybe he was a bit distracted. So he's not finding super success going to the high ground, low ground. Something that he was abusing very well against Solar, actually, in the best of 5 semifinals leading up to this. It was the opposite side of the map, but same situation. Dark is handling it, well, frankly, better. And now he is supply blocked. He still holds on to a decent army supply. He's got some units defending this attack over on the right side, or does he actually? The Marines able to escape this round, focus down these banelings, and the 2 tanks will even survive. That is annoying. Dark is going to be forced to send his army over to now take care of this, when he thought that little batch might be able to do so. He's got 2-2 on the way. He also has Vipers and Adrenal Glands. During all of this pressure, Dark is actually managed advantage to, first of all, spend his money, and then second of all, actually get up to Hive technology. And he's going to go ahead and conquer this particular push. Maru overstaying his welcome for certain. Now let's pick everything up, and now he's going to have to unload in the awaiting arms of Lings and Banelings. Dark knows that he has an opportunity. He knows that Maru overextended, and he's going to pounce on it as the Medivacs unload the Marines. The Banelings are waiting for it, and that's going to be every last Terran unit dead. All the SCVs now under pressure, going to be picked up, but to what ends? I doubt Maru can actually recover from this one. He cannot get the ball of Marines that he needs to send Dark back home, but even if he did, yeah, Dark's on 5 bases, Hive technology, and Maru just had to sacrifice some of his thirds, so it would not be a very pretty game from then on. Dark with a powerful game number 1 in his defense. The fact that he was able to survive all of that aggression and a significant macro problem, forced one, but still, well, kudos to him. He's very good in the situations, and he takes game 1 of this best of 7. Game number 2 is going to be on Dragon Scales. In the top left, it is Dark. In the bottom right, we have Maru. And Maru tried a little bit of kind of cheese. It wasn't proxy 3-Rax Reaper, but it was still 3-Rax Reaper. And it just wasn't as successful as it could have been, perhaps. Going after the third hatch did guarantee its cancel, but then there wasn't any damage done on Dark's foundational 2-base setup, which might have been better. Of course, Maru would certainly know more than I do, so he decided to go after that third hatch. He did get the cancel, but then maybe he was supposed to keep his Reapers alive a little bit longer. Wasn't supposed to get that partial surround as he tried to escape. And then if you have 7 Reapers, I guess, still running around, even if speed is done, that's a threat, and it would have contributed to the Marine follow-up that he did. That little kind of pokey poke would have been a little more intimidating. Yeah, the more I think about it, that might have been that probably was supposed to be a little bit more of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 type of jab build up, and instead it was a little weak in the jabs, perhaps because of that. I'm still kind of amazed though, because even as I try to think through of what Maru could have done better, the Dark banking 1,000 minerals during some of the pressure really made me obviously more concerned for him, and he just made it look like it was no big deal. Something that Dark does do particularly well. He also cheeses very well, and we do have a cheese on the way, guys. Pull first, gas, and a Roachhorn. And Maru is not SCV scouting. Maru also is not going for the 2-Rax. And this is actually a big problem. With a 2-Rax on the forward position, I actually think that this generally beats what Dark is doing. I'm a little surprised that Dark actually is doing this, considering how likely it would be for Maru to have 2-Raxes. But I think, the wall being on a high ground actually can sometimes make this a trickier defense, believe it or not. It's supposed to be a good defensive tool, but then it can kind of make things awkward. The Ravagers break down the wall, and the bunker doesn't really hit anything, and so on and so forth. But anyway, it's not that. It is not. It is a 1-Rax expand on the forward position, which will contribute to a wall faster, but it means that there's not a lot of army units. The Overlord died, which kind of sucks for Dark's build, but he was able to see that coming and replace the Overlord. And also, it will doubly suck because he doesn't have high ground vision anymore. But he was able to confirm it's a 1-Rax expand, and in that, he's probably, doing this thing with his hands, right? Now's the time to get some damage done, but it looks like Maru is a little suspicious of what his opponents could be doing. He's actually scouted absolutely nothing. I'm not crazy here. He's just defaulting into a bunker. It looks like he actually might believe that Dark does this often against even a 2-Rax opener, even though I know that it can defend this build. It can also look tricky. I've seen it. And then Maru was like, well, I think that's what you're going to do here. So I'm going to 1-Rax expand and make it look like I'm even more vulnerable, but then I'm going to get a bunker blind. And 1 bunker now on a more forward position rather than behind the second barracks like it can be. I mean, it's actually pretty good. Again, without this bunker on this particular level here, on this layer, I mean, the supply depots are goners no matter what once there's 3 Ravagers, I would say, but... No, I was going to say, Overlord did come scooting on over eventually. But this still would have been a little bit more pressure. I think maybe a little bit faster. Plus, the barracks wouldn't have lived to kill the Overlord, because it would be building a Reaper. So, I don't know, this kind of feels like Maru actually anticipated this, and this is his counter to what Dark has done. Now, Dark is still getting damage done, but consider that this is not a delayed command center like it would have been if it was a 2-Rax opener as well. He actually is working on 2 bases for an extended period of time, can call down mules as well. Does get supply blocked. Didn't actually preempt that second supply block by the looks of things. So no SCV production for a little while either, only now being able to pump 2 out, as he did prioritize some of his production, of course, building the bunker and the barracks and factory and starport, now all finished. So that is a decent amount of production. And Dark obviously has not really contributed much more to this attack other than building the roaches into Ravagers, which is a pretty penny for the early game. Don't get me wrong. But he hasn't gone for more Lings and more roaches. And so Maru should know what Dark has done, and Dark should know kind of what Maru is doing as well. Kind of. He actually would have not known if it was a faster 3rd CC or if it was all the way up to 111 until this Overlord just got killed by a Viking, starport obviously, and a tank. Clearly the factory is doing some production of its own and not being used to just hot swap reactors and whatnot. So yeah, he has a bit more of an idea of what it actually is, but even then he knew that he would have the map control with the Roach Ravager opener. Even if this was a different opener, it was a 3rd CC, that's even less aggressive. But even with this timing, we have Dark allowed to get his 3rd hatch up. Some creep spread, not a lot. And of course, he might be just going into Roach Ravager, which might change up the way that Maru tries to position himself on the map. I would say so, because he still isn't getting speed, so I'm thinking Roach Ravager. He'll probably eventually get speed, but even further down the line, if this game goes that long. So very interesting opener. You know, if Maru hadn't blind built a bunker, I think this goes very differently. I don't think that's an insane claim to make. But I am just kind of curious as to why he did it. And it would not surprise me if it was the thing that I guessed, which is that Dark does often open this way on this map against these Korean Terrans that now almost always, go for the 2-Rax opener, and he just wants to really bother them. Take away their map control, so the Reapers have to be defensive, not offensive. Do that little damage on the supply depots. Threaten the barracks, because they are threatened in that scenario. And then force a different follow-up as well than what the Terran might have wanted to do. And Maru kind of tried to nip that in the bud a little bit. So very interesting, very interesting. But now we have 16 Marines unloading in the main base, and Dark is supply blocked, and with not a lot of army to speak for, but enough. With the Queens also coming in here with some transfuses. Actually, none of them had transfuses. Well, maybe with transfuses, I guess. You know, the Ravagers are a little vulnerable. They're soft underbelly a lot of time, but Maru didn't try jumping after it. And without combat shields, he certainly is a little less gung-ho. Perhaps with it, he might be a little more adventurous. Creep getting cleaned up, and that is valuable creep. Which is not often said, but it's so early on in the game in which Dark had opened with the cheese that it's not like he has a lot of active creep termers to spare, or a lot of queens to spare, especially as we are now in that drop mode of the Terran, where they could be dropping even 2 places at once. So the queen's going to be pulled left, right, and center. So that creep spread, that was a lot of it to take down. That was also kind of the central point of the creep, which it's very annoying to restart. You got to get the high ground once again going on these sides, and then you only have 1 creep tumor. So the queens are, again, maybe going to be busy. Although, Maru actually kind of backed off. Only 2 medevacs still in the field. No 3rd one, just the Vikings still looking around for overlords that have been pulled back. It means they're not going to die, but it also means they're not necessarily doing a lot of scouting, huh? And now these Marines do have combat shields, so they are going to be a little more aggressive. Right on top of those Ravagers, bypassing the Roaches, and those are expensive losses, ideally, for any Roach Ravager play, but certainly one in which you're trying to recover, I would say. Ravagers are supposed to be your never dying unit, the immortal unit of the Zerg, the one that always escapes when things go sideways, because the Roaches sacrifice for the greater good, and the Corrosive Biles buy time. And to lose them is a hefty chunk of change that you would not want to reinvest, as you're not particularly rich. Dark has been able to, of course, build up an almost maxed out Roach Ravager army, because that's the way that works. You can do once, you might not be able to do it twice. Let's see if Maru can make the defense happen. Trying to come in from multiple directions. Dark is stalled out kind of on both sides, and that was very intentional from Maru. If he had not decided to pull the SCVs, or he hadn't jumped on one particular attack or another, his army would at this point be completely surrounded. Now, as it is, the tanks did still go down, one on the high ground, one on the high ground, and the third one did just pop out, so Dark actually can't get into the natural quite yet, but he has stopped that third CC from mining. That's a lot of Marines left over, and they do have 1-1. They jump on top of the right side this particular time. More Ravagers go down. The Ravager hit squad on the left side. Got to take down this tank, in which case they do without too many losses. So Maru's chase on the right side may be costing him a little bit too much. I'm not sure how much he got there, though. If he got like 5 Ravagers, then that might have made up for it, but it doesn't seem that way. 8 in total have gone down this game, including the earlier hit squad. Now more coming down as he focus fires them, but that is going to be it for the army. Having to evacuate. The mules were dropped. He thought he might be secure, and he was wrong. So lost mining time on mules, especially painful. And now Maru might even be a little bit desperate. Things have not gone quite the best way possible. They're not actually, Maru's not totally dead and gone yet, but they've definitely not gone well. So he is going to send his 3 medevacs across. These units were a little injured and hadn't been healed up, and the Roaches will be good enough, also just shy of having that 2-2 done, which would have actually made a huge difference in that battle. But Maru, looking to buy some time, gets the Roach Ravager off of his back, has successfully done that. The Ravagers on the offensive have to be extremely careful, and they're definitely not going to push without the Roaches protecting them. It's just not a big enough army to do so if Maru's production is still intact, which it definitely is. So the triple drop threats has worked out in a way. Maru still took a very long time to get his 3rd CC back on location, though. They had to, first stay safe in the natural and then go over to the left side. Now it's there, and Dark is going to try and stop that from mining, but 2-2 is done. Dark has to be very careful about further engagements, especially as half of his army is not involved. More is coming in, but kind of lopsided. 3 tanks are available. More Marines, so definitely more comfortable for Maru. And more are coming back home, but so are more Roaches and Ravagers. They're actually the scouting party telling them that the rest of the Zerg is on the way. SCVs once again pulled in here. 3 tanks getting a lot of shots off, however, and that 2-2 really making a difference. The left side does not work out for Dark. The right side, not so much either, but he did kill 20 SCVs. That's part of the reason, mostly the reason the left side didn't work out, as in completely break. He did not break the left side, but 20 SCVs were the cost of that, and Maru is on 40 SCVs in total, which actually is still saturating his 3 bases, but because he is running out of minerals. Dark is on 4 bases himself, pretty happy on 76 drones, trying to also equalize the upgrades as 2-2 is about 30 seconds away from finishing. Maru back on the offensive, 4 drops headed towards that main base. 1 Spore Crawler going to try and defend, but of course that will not be enough, although it is hitting the weakened medevac. Now the 4 medevacs will unload, and Dark's army is not quite in place, is it? A lot of Roaches are on the way, but they're coming in single file, which the Marines will take advantage of, also killing the Roachborn, taking the reinforcements out of the equation, and maybe even going toe-to-toe with these Roaches for a little bit. He will not overstay his welcome, I assume, but he is also under trouble. Actually, on the other side, however, this does not look like it went so hot for Dark. He did manage to kill a tank, and I don't know how many Marines, but not too many SCVs died. Very good pull there, but oh, the Queens! They were in perfect position to stop the unload on the low ground. Maru, distracted, I was too, sends his medevacs into the missile attacks of the Queens, and only 1 medevac will live to tell the tale, when I'm guessing at least 3 should have. At least 3, if not all 4 medevacs probably should have still lived. Maybe the 4th one died to the Spore Crawler, but the point is that was perfect placement once again from Dark. He showcased that in the last game. He's doing it again here, and with that significant loss of life, Maru's supply is in the gutter. +3 attack will finish before this next engagement, and that is huge. +3 against Roach Ravager is amazing. Medevac count still kind of decent as well, and the tank count is at 5. This might still be a hold that Maru is capable of doing, but the SCVs kind of pulled in a little bit late, and just the overwhelming numbers of Roach Ravagers looking awfully concerning. The tanks are starting to go down here, but there's so many of them. Just a handful of Marines left over is going to be enough, and actually the Ravagers left vulnerable without those Roaches are being chased down, and the supplies are as close as they have ever been, within 30 supply of each other. Maru's 11 SCVs did go down, but he's still at 42. That's actually pretty much, you just reset, right? And he's been working off of 40 SCVs. Not kind of no problem. able to afford Marines, upgrades, medevacs, and one tank at a time has been just enough to hold on. But Dark had a little bit of a bank. He is going to be able to remax as he also remade that Roach Warren as fast as he possibly could. And Dark now just needs time to build up his Ravager counts because that did get completely reset, something that Maru is going to be very happy about. He's also going to be happy about his +3 armor finishing, so now he's ahead by 1-1 upgrades. Tank's in wonderful position, and Dark is now certainly in trouble. His 5th base is going to go down by the looks of things, and the question is, will that be enough damage from Maru to make up for all the damage that he has taken over the course of this game? I would say so, because if this does fall, it feels like it's the domino effect. Now, Dark does come in a little bit from the backside, something that Maru was not expecting, managed to take out all of the tanks thanks to the corrosive bio, but not all of the Marines. Those upgrades still really helping out here. The relatively healthy medevac count also extremely important. One tank will siege up as the hatchery dies, a little bit wasted, unfortunately, for Maru, but Dark needed that 5th base. He's working on 79 drones, but how many are actually working efficiently? Oversaturation on the natural, oversaturation on the 3rd, and the 4th base will probably start being oversaturated soon, very soon. Of course, Maru would be in a very similar boat if it wasn't for the Terran's ability to lift, and thank goodness they have it. So his main becomes his 4th, and with all the pressure that Maru is applying on Dark's side of the map, it looks like Dark is not thinking about a run by quite yet, even though he did get speed. He did get +1 melee. He's just trying to use everything he has to defend his bases and his drones. The Marines do stand and fight, I believe, intentionally for a little while there, knowing their upgrades are just so damn good. And this Viking, shout out to this Viking, 15 minutes, man, and it's still doing work. That is its 8th Overlord? No, I think it landed and killed some other things. It might be a 5th Overlord, though. That's still pretty impressive. And the tank, once again, well positioned. This time, 3 tanks available, actually. 4. Make it 4. 2 factories now pumping reliably since Maru is really saturated this time. Not that kind of awkward saturation of his main mining out. No further need for upgrades either, so that's money in his pocket. And Dark, as I said, struggling. That domino effect really coming in strong. Vipers are available now, however, and that's going to make a big difference. Coming in for the blinding clouds, maybe on some of the army as well. Parasitic bomb, however, not very effective. Roach and Ravagers trying to break this line, but Maru's supply holding strong. His tank line holding strong. And the Marines just outliving everything that Dark has to throw at him. A couple of Banelings have been included, and that's what Dark needs. A little bit more of that burst damage, but it might be coming in too late. Everything might be coming in a little too late. The Viper's a little too late. The Banelings a little too late. The medevac count still insane at this point. The parasitic bomb again was not effective. And did he lose all the Vipers? He did. Every last Viper went down. Maru's attack on the top right is going to be what wins this game as he chases down the last of the Roach Ravager. Still very confident in his ability to win game number 2 despite kind of the odds. I mean, I always had confidence he could make the defenses that he did, but they were extremely close. Extremely. One wrong move, no matter whether it was offensive or defensive, and he probably does get broken, and Dark finds himself in a 2-0 position. But no, at this point in time, Dark really doesn't have anything up his sleeve. Basic Roach Ravager will certainly not be winning this game. He needs the Banelings, Baneling bombs, perhaps. He needs the Spellcasters, and he just doesn't have it. Even as the Marines leave the tanks a little unguarded, Dark doesn't even have enough to take them out. And he's losing all of his economy as well. Maybe feeling a little bit like he let this one fall through his fingers. It was awfully close when that 3rd CC had to lift for so long, really limiting the income of Maru. Also, a couple of the upgrade timings, just a couple of seconds later, and that actually would have been huge. I know 2-2, I believe, or +2 attack it was. +2 attack finish right before an engagement, and +3 attack, didn't it? So it's just like a lot of things lined up well for Maru, alongside his great emergency management. Now we have a tied-up series. Very interesting game, very interesting, because it definitely felt like they were playing a little bit to each other in the early stages, and then it did just get down and dirty, mud wrestled, Roach Ravager trying to break the Terran, and Maru held strong. So let's get into game number 3 and see what happens. Series tied up now as we move on to altitude. In the bottom left, we have Dark. In the top right, it is Maru. This is the KSL Summer Slam Grand Finals. KSL standing for Korean StarCraft League, a community endeavor to support the Korean esports. That is StarCraft 2. If you would like to support, then go to patreon.com/Korean StarCraft League. And there you can find the replays, or just generally support the Korean scene, which certainly does need some help here. can also support with, I think, Awardy has a couple of fundraising endeavors, as well as the GSL itself having a Patreon. So lots of ways to support these fun players, as they have given us fantastic games over and over and over and over again, actually. A rather small pool of Korean players, sadly, that is the truth, but have been playing in almost every single online tournament. Maru a little less so, but, you know, Dark Solar Hero, definitely. And are just... the amount of fun, creative, interesting games they've delivered, couldn't count them. To infinity and beyond on that one. Especially as most of these guys have been playing since 2010. Most of them, not all of them. Dark, actually, at one point, the standout Zerg of the Slayers team. Maru, well, I don't think I need to go over his history, but the youngest in StarCraft 2 to enter into GSL. And I just don't remember if Flash was the youngest technical pro gamer, but then also pro gamer had a more strict meaning back in Brood War. There was actually a pro gamer license, but that's it's not StarCraft history time. One is that Maru's been around since he was like 12. And yeah. It basically is just growing up playing StarCraft. It's kind of insane to think of what that could have possibly meant for his development. I need some scientist ASAP to figure this one out. Does he have the best, like, tiny finger twitch muscles? Does his brain think in terms of build orders? Like, maybe. Anyway. It's not part of the ESL Pro Tour, by the way. It's just something that's in my folder that stays there. Just gonna make that distinction. No, the logo that you see on the overlay, that is what we're on about. KSL Summer Slam. So, anyway, Maru with the 2 racks forward build once again. So, he went 3 racks in the first game. 1 racks expand, a little bit tricky, but it was a forward 1 racks. And then back to what is now, I guess, more the standard. So, 2 racks, but still not without a little bit of an interesting note. So, we do have him going 3 Reaper into Marine. And I discussed this in the Maru Solar series, but if you missed that one, and you don't want to watch it because you've already been spoiled, then the difference here is that a lot of times, you know, the emphasis is on the add-ons, the Tech Lab and the Reactor, because you're moving on to the next portion of the build. Something that could be very dangerous or could just be 3cc build. And then you might miss out on the opportunity to kill the Overlord, which will get a freebie scout into the main. But if you follow up with the Marines, then the Zerg players will, you know, basically always second guess themselves. Should I put the Overlord in such a position because it's going to die? Now, in this case, Dark actually had 2 Overlords, so 1 going down will not stop him from scouting. He does also get his Lings around the Reapers, which we're trying to be as, you know, harassy as possible. And he does kill the 2 Marines. It's just a little annoying, because those 2 Marines were going to go up into the main and try and stop this Overlord, if there was one. Maru has nothing else to do with the Marines, so he might as well have. And he would have stopped this. Funnily enough, though, I've been talking about Dark actually having the second opportunity to scout, and, yeah, not doing it. He's not moving that Overlord in. Currently trying to surround these 3 Reapers, which Maru is microing rather well, trying to abuse low ground, high ground as much as possible, but their death was inevitable. Mid-air always feels so cruel. But yeah, the Overlord could easily scout the 3rd CC and probably get away alive. Well, that's becoming less likely as more Marines get pumped out. I would say it actually would probably suicide scout anyway, just because the 3rd CC is not the end-all be-all of this build. 3rd CC does mean that whatever aggression is coming is pushed off by 30 seconds, then it's less pressure and whatever, but seeing that it's Hellions and a non-reactor starport would actually be very useful information. To know that it's not just 16 Marines and 2 medevacs, have your Lings and Queens prepared, but rather Hellions diving, Liberator searching, and Marines killing Overlords, something along those lines. I mean, it just, you know, your placement of units is very important. Alright, this 1 Ling will scout the Hellions as well as this Liberator, so hey, who needs a suicidal Overlord scout? He just scouted everything. And this really does tell him what the add-ons were. It was Reactor Factory, single production starport. So, I'm not going to say good job, Overlord. It was definitely the Lings, but It could have happened either way. Liberator, Hellion, Hit Squad, not really going to be looking for dives. A little bit later into the game now that they've been figured out, but they are still good at map control. And if they see an opportunity to dive, they will take it. Liberator tried to get that kill on the main base, but the Queens responded appropriately as more Queens were available to help out against the Hellions, and it looks like the Lings were in just good enough numbers to take care of it. So a very good division of the defensive units from Dark yet again. It's actually, I feel like, been a highlight for him in this series. And I don't think it's something I've really thought as a highlight for him in previous games. But the attack follow-up is on the way. This time it is those, well, 15 Marines and 2 medevacs. A couple of Hellions still available, but no armory done, so I'm not sure they're going to pair up with the group. They really shouldn't, as this will be picked up. No room for Hellions in that case. This is actually going to cancel the 4th base. Yeah, Dark tried his best to save that one, but the focus fire, the amount of Marine DPS was good enough. Canceled 4th base, but his 5th base also placed down at the same time and try and kind of make up for lost time to a certain degree. Certainly lost larva production, which I was harping on in the first game, and I would still be attentive to in this one. Also a supply block. Oh, just for a second from Maru. Just for a hot second. That was hardly one. It was hardly one. He's building up his 3rd base defenses. Combat shields 1-1 on the way now from Maru. He does have his 5 barracks production set up as well. And we're heading into a rather healthy mid-game, I would say. I mean, it's great that Maru got that cancel in the 4th. Sure, absolutely. But I actually don't think that Dark is, you know, he's not down and out because of it. And he really is kind of smoothly moving along. Looking more like a hiccup than anything else. Especially as he is not under immediate threats. So, that larva problem didn't really exist, actually. He's been able to spend his money. He's also added on his upgrades, although certainly later upgrades than his opponents. That 1-1 considerably later. Centrifugal hook's not done. Hydra speed not done. No Hydra on the field quite yet anyway. And Maru is now setting up for the actual attack. Oh, he built more Hellions, up to 7 actually. And they are now Hellbats. How many Banelings are available? 15, that's a pretty healthy number. That's probably going to be enough if they're all together. And Baneling speed will finish. The hatchery is under fire once again. The Banelings will decide to go for it, but that was a split Hellbats group underneath 2 medevacs that healed them just barely enough that they're still in the action. And that hatchery will, in fact, go down. There's also some distraction over to the right side, so a lot of Ling Baneling was over there. 5 drones, a hatchery, more to fall, perhaps more Queens as well. Reinforcements coming out, but they're Hydras, which really do not do well on their lonesome. This army is getting awfully low in health, however, and the Ling Baneling finally does arrive to take care of it. Unfortunately, you know, Dark having to split his army really led to 2 decent attacks on either side of the map. One particularly good one with the kill of the drones and the hatchery. If he had been able to deal with one and then the other, I actually don't think it's that much of a problem. But that is the power of Terran. It's exactly what Terran does. The Terran rulebook do more than one thing at all times. Now, Widow Mines have been included as well, so this is really going to speed up, and Dark is going to have to make sure he gets Overseers on the field. So far, he doesn't have any. Armory is finished after all. Banelings will crash into some Marines, but then the Widow Mines will pop off, and they will once again pop off in the future. No Overseer. Still no Overseer being made, and you don't really want to try and manually detonate. And actually, Dark will just tap out, realizing that this game is not going to be settled for him anytime soon, as in he's not going to settle. It was settled for him, and that Maru won it. But yeah, his foundation was never quite set up. And if Maru was not as good as he is, I mean, if he didn't split up his army, 2 attacks over here, 2 drops are over here, Hellbat attack on the left side, Dark might have been able to recover from his 4th base cancel. But another 4th base kill, drones killed, reinforcements all over the place, supply block incoming. Yeah, that wasn't going to get any prettier the longer the game went on. So Maru will now take a 2-1 lead. In the top left of Neo Humanity, we do have DKZ's Dark. In the bottom right, it is Onside Gaming's Maru. We are on a map well known for its macro games. It's turtle games. I don't want to curse it. I don't want it to happen, but it probably will. Because the map just, well, it kind of encourages the defensive 3-base setup, sure. But I would say it's also a lot to do with just how the map really does consolidate and push both players to meet in the middle. It's not as much of a windy, well, this pathway works in this sense and this pathway works in that sense type of map. It's just more like, well, this is obviously the most direct path, and we're both expanding around the path, so let's boop, 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 boop. And the Terrans can, of course, send drops, or Ling run-bys can happen from the Zerg off to the outer edges, which does mean that Xel'Naga control can be important, but yeah, it really does hone in on this main central path, which I think will encourage people to kind of dig in, trench war. Especially if Dark is the one to go for the Roach Ravager bust, which he's actually pretty good at on this map. It might be on the nose, because he does it so much. What is this drone doing? Scouting for 2-racks. Huh, he must have been very scared of a 2-racks. I guess since he was going to take this third anyway, it's like already going to lose so much time. He was like, why not check? Okay. What was I talking about? Dark's usually very good at the Roach Ravager attack, and he does it a lot on this map, but that doesn't mean that it always works, but it also doesn't mean that it never works, because it's so on the nose. And then if it kind of works, it's like kind of did some damage, it didn't really win, then we do get into that very, very late scenario. But I'm actually waiting more so on what Dark does. Maru is going for the 2-racks opener, and so he'll have his follow-up that may or may not be very dangerous, and yeah, that is very important. Yeah, sure. But for me, I'm looking at Dark and whether or not he does his Roach Ravager attack. If we don't get that far, we don't get that far. If Maru happens to win whatever he follows up with, great. But so far, it is not something particularly dangerous. It is just that natural, and then no Marines this time. Kind of didn't work out last game anyway. He does know about the third hatch, something that maybe he doesn't check and is kind of blind. Now he knows about it. And it is a third CC. No second gas was taken. So third CC, once again, immediately available. This one is definitely available to the Overlord Scout. No problem whatsoever. And in fact, there's no Marines, so it could... I usually say suicide, because that's usually what happens when it just literally goes across the base. Wouldn't even be suicide. They could just do it. We're not going to bother, because the third CC, as of right now, is the only thing he has to scout. Another 30 seconds, he might try and dip back in to see if it's barracks or factories. Something you do have to consider, even though it's mostly bio. And then, whether or not, again, like that reactor goes on the factory at the starport, or there's a faster armory, some double factory opener into bio, something along those lines, right? This is saying the Overlord might dip back in exactly to see what the production setup is. And Dark has thrown down a Roach Horn, so got my answer here. Reapers, I don't hit. There you are. Oh, they try to jump up. They were unsuccessful, but you know what they were successful in? They probably would have seen that there were no wings on those not speedlings. And at 4 minutes, no speed, probably not going to be speed. And if it's not speed, it's going to be roaches. There's really no other way to slice that one, yeah. No one goes speedless mass queen. What do they used to call that? No, not the ice pick build. Something along those lines, though. Damn. Someone's gonna remember. Anyway, we got a lot of drones on the way. Dark did hide his Roach Warren, but like I said, that lack of speed is probably already an indicator. And Maru should be thinking, all right, is he going to go for the 1-1, or is he going to go into his infestation pit in his late game? Which Dark is very capable of both, but like I said, he does often do his actual 1-1 Roach attack on this map. I would say that generally the people he plays most have been very good about adapting to it, though. It's people he plays less that still gets destroyed by his 1-1 Roach attack. They don't accommodate for his potential surround well enough. But I would say that Maru would actually probably be, very aware of that and have some depots and some city, and like his previous game, actually, attack the one army before the other one. Could be really, really helpful. But I am, of course, getting my head of myself. There's not going to be very much happening up until that point, because Maru did go for a third CC. He will get a couple of drops out. But the drops are on a bit of a timer because they have to consider that a bunch of roaches might be coming across the map to kill you, and not being in medevacs would be preferable. So, yeah, we are just waiting for Roach Ravager. Called it minute 1. Could have just said absolutely nothing and then waited. But that probably wouldn't have been very entertaining. 1-1 is also on the way from Maru, of course, finally getting set up. He's on to his tank production, which I imagine he does first and foremost no matter what every single game. But certainly, again, with that indication that it is roaches, the lack of speed, he knows to stay on tank production. And he's got his double drops now trying to do some damage. And they are also scouting. Like, he doesn't quite know 100% that it's going to be the all-in. He wants to see if it's a lot of Roach Ravager or a infestation pit, basically. And if the Zerg player is good, they really shouldn't be showing all of the army. There's no reason to. Show what you need to deflect the 2 medevacs, and then either successfully hide that you're attacking them, or literally send it across the map while those medevacs are still busy. And Dark's 4th base going to be on that forward position. Get the Rich Vespian Geyser when he needs it, breaking down the rocks to lessen the rush distance. And yeah, at this point, Maru knows exactly what's going on here, I would say. Definitely better to be safe than sorry. If it was an infestation pit and this was just a front, then it's still better for him to build these bunkers, salvage them, great ability, and potentially delay a 4th base, which he might be getting instead if he knew for a fact that Dark wasn't attacking him, which is hard to tell. Hard to get that as a fact. There were a couple of drones added on, but Dark is no doubt maxing out on Roach Ravager. Upgrades have finished for both parties. Medevac out here scouting for this purpose, to identify 100% that I am about to be attacked, and also how I'm about to be attacked. Is it mostly army on the left, mostly armor on the right, and even split? What is it? Dark actually, I mean, I think he's been aware of his scouts, him being scouted for basically as long as I've been talking about it. So he is actually already planning on moving on. I'm not even sure he'll actually pull the trigger on this. Yeah, he is, but once he sees the setup, I don't know how much he's going to commit. He's still going to commit. 1 bunker already down, 2nd one falls, 3rd one also actually going to live. Not enough corrosive biles. Maru's supply depots are being torn down, but I would say their wall was worth it. But he definitely should have been building them more preemptively. Just to critique someone who plays almost perfectly. There it is, 3 supply depots. But he was certainly more scared of a big actual bust attempt. Now that he sees it was kind of half-hearted, he should know there's a very strong chance that this guy's moving on. And there's unfortunately not much to do about that, especially as you're supply blocked. But, he already has 4th CC building, so this does not, position him terribly. If he had been so keen on defending that he just let minerals bank and didn't move on with his life, and then nothing happens, well, then he might be a little screwed. But, he was prepared for the potential next step. And so he has a 4th command center, a 2nd factory, 2 upgrades on the way, and Dark is the one that kind of has to squeeze everything in this minutes that he has before Maru might actually be ready to push him and punish him. But he is squeezing a lot in. That bank that would have been accruing for a 2nd Roach Ravager follow-up is now being used to macro. So Hive, fungal growth, infestors, pathogen glands, 2/2, metablock boost, baneling speed, like everything really. Vipers, of course, on the way as the Hive finishes up, and the spellcaster usage is one of my favorite parts of watching Dark. We often attribute spellcasters with late game, and again, Dark might not be the best at late game. I would say that he's more likely than anyone else to actually use spellcasters early on. He actually uses infestors rather early in some more comeback type of games, and so I think he might not be the actual best at wombo combos, but because he's the only one doing it so often, it kind of looks that way. So, spellcaster usage to me, as far as the emergency, as far as more of the mid game, still kind of being aggressive, I think is great. I find myself very entertained by the man. But then if it does go into super late game, I do absolutely favor Maru. Absolutely. And we're headed that direction. That is a whole heck of a lot of tanks. My goodness. 9 tanks, basically all positioned to defend that fourth. It is not getting cracked anytime soon. They also do have that +1 vehicle weapons, working on +2. I believe the Ghost Academy just finished up. Marauders are on the way. Marauder Slow should be as well. 3-3 has started up as fast as Maru could get it. And that is a second armory, actually. So he is really setting up for that late game. This is where I believe Maru wins. Not quite no problem, but he wins. However, this faster Spire actually could be a bit of a troublemaker. And this is not totally uncommon on this map. It still is very difficult for a Terran who's constantly under pressure and is constantly trying to think about like where the next step is going, to necessarily remember to watch out for fast Broodlords. And you might be like, fast Broodlords, it's late game. Like, how fast is that? Well, considering that Broodlords often only arrive in very late game scenarios where the map is kind of condensed because all the bases are mined out, and you try to build like your literal perfect Zerg army, so like 20 Broodlords, Infestors, whatever. Yeah, I would say this is early. And one of the reasons I think that it works is not only because obviously Maru's built up so many tanks, which aren't very good against Broodlords, and so he's maybe not as prepared as he could be, but it also is the nature of the map again. A map that really does mostly force you to butt heads in the middle. So it's not so much about abusing the attack paths to the left and to the right. This attack seems doomed. I mean, well, doomed is a strong word. The attack seems like it won't actually find success, but I was wrong about that. The 3 tanks on the right side not really contributing. 2 tanks back here, again, not really contributing. And Maru does take a lot of losses. Bio losses, which, you know, usually you'd say, well, the tank survived, the tank's the slowest building thing. That's usually a great sign, but I'm actually not so sure. Not if Broodlords are the intention. No matter how you slice it, that's a chunk of change that Maru now has to replace. Fortunately, he is on 5 bases going on a 6, so he certainly will be able to replace it. Stops the Nidus Worm from doing any damage. Maybe realizes his tank's stuck. Nope. Okay. And he is going to get time to replace his bio with stronger units, aka ghosts. Does Maru know about the Spire? He does. He did scan it. So Greater Spire is something that he knows about, and now it's more about determining if the guy's making Corruptors to go into Broodlords. So that's why we see scans on the army, alongside, you know, seeing if this guy's about to attack me. And it was awfully close. Maru prepared to split and counter, and that was not going to be a good attack for Dark. As Maru is perfecting his late game Terran army, Dark now has to consider going into that supremely long TvZ and getting his own perfect Zerg army. Whatever he might think that is. Ling run by into the natural is a bit annoying. Man, the orbital command is actually under fire here. Not, of course, the bio is to kill it immediately, but if it's not repaired, could still be a problem. And the right side also under attack. Dark just sending bodies at the Terran player into every nook and cranny and hoping that one actually finds success. I would say every attack found some success, but perhaps not as much as you would want again. 25 SCVs go down, orbitals lifted, some army did die, and that all seems very good, but we're really watching the development of a perfect Terran army. And the issue is more, did the Terran die, than whether or not the Terran got injured. If he can slap a band-aid on it, and then also like a robotic arm that makes it even better, then more power to the bio player, right? More power to the Terran player. And the robotic arm, again, in this case, would be the amount of ghosts that he has. 14 of them. Pretty healthy number. Nidus Worm in the natural, however, is going to get up and running. No army units to help out. Only SCVs, not good enough. Actually, I guess the Overlord kind of dipped in and then dipped back out, I guess. And these are cracklings, of course. Well, hardly, I mean, they have a shooting glance. They do not have very good upgrades otherwise. But once again, the orbital will not be destroyed, and the ghosts are looking for that kind of clapback, you know? They're waiting to get revenge whenever Dark actually moves forward. The Dark is trying to do all this damage while also still thinking about his perfect army, but right now, it does seem like Ling Baneling is the way to go. Because the Zerg perfect army, if we can, you know, theory craft one, would be Neural Parasite Infestors, Vipers, so Spellcasters. Speaking of, cheeky Infestor right there. Mass Broodlord, and then Baneling, I guess. Yeah, I think. Yep, pretty much. I mean, they're talking about the most extreme late game possible, but that is what we've seen with some of the most extreme late games possible. And then in turn, the Terran would often go more into Thors. But we are not at that point yet, because Dark is actually still going on this Ling Baneling mass approach, which can work. But one of the ways that it does work a lot of the time is that it finds the Terran a little more out of position than it has. Maru has managed to retain his ghost count, which is really the most important, keep his tank count relatively healthy. And it's kept its production and economy, again, relatively intact. It's not going absolutely perfectly for Maru. Certainly not, as he does struggle to remax. But, well, and he's also actually pushing out, which is now the most dangerous thing he could be doing. I was going to say, Dark would still need to make sure that Maru does not get that 5th base back up and running. Influx of minerals as the mules get dropped is going to be a real bummer. Although, actually, it's about the gas, I would say, more so. Definitely needs a Rich Vespian Geyser. That Infestor waiting around. He's got a Neural Parasite and go for the EMP! This is what Dark is known for. A lot of the ghosts now without snipes or EMPs of their own, and the ghost is still Neural Parasited. No scan to try and take care of that. Maru's just like, well, shit. I guess I gotta deal with it, fine. The tank's now being overrun as the bio was pulled over to the right side. Ling Baneling jumping on the opportunity, splits from the bio and the ghost to try and mitigate the damage, but without AoE, they're not really mitigating much. They're still going down. SCV's going down as well. Now the last of the Ling Baneling Roach Ravager will fall. But the supplies favor Dark as well as that bank, so I would say that that was a very successful attack. Because it's about the limited ability of Maru to macro out of that. And it is by far the most limited position that Maru has been in as far as remaxing. He's actually somewhat desperately moving out here. Another Neural goes down. He cannot stop the Infestors. The scan even missed this particular one. And Dark is almost remaxed again himself. He's got Ling Baneling again as his main composition. Never having to move on, finding enough success with every wave to say that I think I can do it, I think I can do it, I think I can do it. And then finally really breaking the economy of Maru so that Maru's really only mining off of one base. First 3 bases almost mined out, 4th base has been stopped from mining, 5th base is mining, but not the gas. And that is something that Maru also needs. More SCVs go down, not that Maru's really thinking about, well, actually he is replacing some of them, but there's only so many that are mining to begin with. So I'm not sure if he's actually going to replace too many more. There was an assimilation on a Hellbat, it sounded like, or something. It doesn't look like a ghost. Whatever it was, it didn't really do much. Maru is going for a push, and this is actually pretty scary. Despite the overall supply difference, the army supply difference is only 6. Neural Parasite comes in again, and it was on a tank, actually. That's a tank sound? Really? Anyway, and that didn't do a whole heck of a lot, but oh, Maru not paying attention does a lot. Oh, the Ling run by distracted him at the perfect second. All of his bio was just on the front lines, opening up their arms and being like, hit me, Baneling, please. And Dark is actually torn Maru apart. I'm actually very surprised by this, not gonna lie. The first 3 or 4 times that Maru was in trouble, I still gave a lot of credit to the 5 base setup that he once had, the ghost counts, and that his tank count was still kind of healthy too. I mean, these are like the foundational things that Terrans need to basically keep limping on, and they're very good at limping on. Terrans are great at that. They're scrappy bastards. But then Dark just kept on hammering him with the same composition. And even though Maru wasn't on a map where you get pulled apart easily, he did get pulled apart. He found himself on the right side with his bio, so his tanks were vulnerable. Or he found himself distracted by Lings, so his ghost got blasted by Banelings. I mean, that actually was a nice dissection of a Terran player on one of the harder maps to break them on, too. So I'll admit I was wrong. I really gave Maru more credit on that map in that position than I should have. Dark is the one that wins and ties up the series once again. In the bottom right of Gresfon, we have Dark. In the top left, it is Maru. Neo-Humanity, late game TvZ. Maru getting to 4 bases almost seamlessly. Roach Ravager attack was hardly dedicated to. And he lost. If anything, I should have taken that as an opportunity to rant about how ghosts aren't as strong as people think they are, but, you know, I mean, sure, why not? why not discuss it here? Since I kind of got, not flamed necessarily, but I had gotten bewildered comments when everyone was a tizzy discussing the balance patch when it first was released. I made a video and I said that ghosts actually aren't as much of a problem, in my opinion. And some people were like, that's crazy talk. Ghosts are the problem, you stupid girl. They weren't that harsh, but they were still bewildered. And, well, I replied, and people didn't seem to take issue with my reply, which is that I just don't think they're actually all that overpowered. Maru made them look overpowered about a year ago, maybe more at this point. I certainly remember that era. I was casting during that time, and they did look a little silly at some point. But then, I mean, not only did they go through a round of nerfs already, right? Yeah. But then I also just really strongly felt that Zerg players had done a better job at kind of figuring out what to do against it. Now, as far as a design problem, like if retaining 14 ghosts being your #1 goal, is that good design or not? Whatever, you can discuss that as much as you want. But that last game, to me, is a good example as to how it's not all about that. There's a lot of things that are still can be, you know, counterplay and actually still fun play in my opinion, because basically the Zerg does have to be so active and to catch them off guard and to catch the weaknesses when they can, that I think it actually creates kind of a dynamic game. And people, I feel, are mostly remembering the stalemate 30-minute games on the old map pool where Maru, in particular, was playing with 20 ghosts. And those were boring. But that was a while ago. Anyway. I said we might see a 3 racks again, and then I was like, well, I don't know, because, you know, there's actually so many follow-ups. Did I say that? Well, I meant to say it. There might be another 3 racks opener, as we saw in the, was it the first game? But, and then I thought, well, there's so many follow-ups to the 2 racks that, you know, even if we go all 7 games, we may not see it. But here we are. Game 5. Another 3 racks coming up from Maru. Again, not proxy, but still a lot of Reapers. And once again, he decides to go after the hatchery. It's actually a little surprising. Because I did kind of theorize maybe this wasn't the play. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe it was more about the Reapers getting caught. So maybe we'll see that difference here, because it does look like, once again, he'll get the cancel on the hatchery. And then the question would be whether or not he gets caught. There's the cancel, yeah. Speed 6 seconds away from finishing is kind of a bummer. But you don't usually get much faster speed than that, so... what are you going to do? But again, the Reapers have not done any damage to the 2-base setup. Last time they were running away at this point, and this time they actually run into the arms of the Lings, and they're trying to escape thanks to the grenades, and thanks to the grenades, more escape than you think should. 2 Reapers go down when it looked like almost every single one was actually going to get surrounded. Oh, but Dark, he's not going to take this shit anymore, man. He is going to go for the counterattack. Solar has been doing this quite a bit against the 2 racks openers. Not specifically against the 3 racks, but the opportunity is certainly there. And I'm going to see if this is going to work out any better defensively, because this is my journey right now as a caster and a learner of StarCraft, is does this early Ling Baneling bust, not the earliest, it's not the cheesiest one, but the early Ling Baneling bust, does it actually just kill most of the follow-ups to the T-Rex? Because so far it has. I actually have yet to see it be defended. I mean, step number 1, the team has to figure out what's going on, but that is extremely difficult to do. The Reapers have to disengage from the Speedlings, so they're not back on the other side of the map. And then, I mean, 3 racks of production, 2 reactors on the front, actually been pumping, well, not 2 Marines at a time. Just 1, actually. There we go. And the Lings are distracting as the actual Baneling Ling attack is on the left side. Maru only now realizing what's going on. Lower supply depot lifts it immediately again. A bit of deja vu. This actually happened in the game versus Solar. As he equally has screwed. He has more Marines, and he does take care of the Banelings. No, not quite, but I don't know if it really would have mattered. That last Baneling helps tear down the rest of the Marines, but they might have been goners anyway. 4 Reapers now is what stands between Maru and the flood of Lings incoming, as the wall has been broken. The barracks is on fire, and the SCVs are all that's there to help out, and that is the last Reaper dead. 3 Marines pop it into what? GG Dark. With an excellent decision there. Might have been thinking about that in the first game. Like, oh, if I just did that, that would have been so much easier. Didn't I mention that? Oh my god, I think I did. Ah, I feel like a genius. Yeah, the Ling Banling bust, it actually seems like a very strong answer to the 2 racks. If anyone has seen the defense, no matter what the follow-up is, I'm still interested in it because I've seen the Ling Banling attack kill the 3 racks player. I've seen it kill a 3cc Hellion player. That was the Maru Solar game, I believe. And I've seen it kill the 3cc 211 player. I think that's the game with Cure. So I'm still actually waiting to see the Ling Banling bust not work. But anyway, that adventure aside, we are still continuing to see if Dark will actually win this series or not, because it's a best of 7. So now he does lead the series 3-2. Maru has another chance to tie up the score. In the bottom left of Royal Blood, we have the Red Zerg Dark now leading the series. And in the top right on his last life, it is Onside Gaming's Maru. So Dark with the swift response. In the first game, he just accepted that he lost his hatchery and then macroed out of it, and he won that one. And then might have thought, I could have won that a lot faster if I just bailing busted him. So when the opportunity presented itself again, he decided to do it. And not only was it a 3 racks opener, and that was the opportunity he was maybe waiting for, maybe just, or maybe he just was like, whatever. He also was able to kill most of the Reapers. Well, not most of the Reapers, but he stopped the Reapers in their tracks from doing anything else, and of course scouting more. So when he got 2 Reapers killed, and it honestly looked like it was going to be all the Reapers, that split-second decision to go for a Banling nest makes a lot of sense. So whatever it was, whether it was kind of, okay, as soon as I realize the 3 racks, as soon as I lose my hatchery, as soon as I surround the Reapers, whatever it was that made him go for the Ling Banling bust, it obviously was a good idea. He leads the series now and makes that game a little bit easier. So he's got a little more stamina to work with. Dark did talk frequently about being one of the older guys. And not, his hands aren't really working the way that he used to. Maru is still one of the younger guys, despite having played every year of StarCraft 2. He's still rather young. He's like 24. But even he has talked about that as well, actually. So we have another 2 racks opener on the forward position. Dark is going to go for his Roach bust. Now this, like I said, might have had a reason on... oh shit, what map was it? Can't remember the name right now. But, because the high ground, low ground dynamic actually makes it a bit weird on the defense. I would still say that when you actually 2 racks, it does beat the Roachborn build. And I know that seems like a really strong thing to say if Dark insists upon doing it against someone who is most likely going for the 2 racks, but I kind of feel that strongly. I have not seen the Roach bust work against the 2 racks for months. It basically worked when Byun was still perfecting the defense. Obviously, as the Reaper player, you do scout this. Now, this maybe was preferably scouted a bit faster. The Reapers only see it as the Roaches come across the map, and that maybe is going to make it a little more complicated. But even then, the Reapers can buy time with their grenades. 2 racks production is 2 racks production, and a tech lab was already built alongside the reactor. It is just a matter of getting this bunker up, and Maru has certainly, talked to or studied or even maybe made this defense, because this is what Byun does. But again, that bunker later than it should be. The Reapers would have loved to have scouted the Roaches here, or of course scouted the Roach one in the main base, and they didn't do so. That extra 6 seconds would have been the end of the bunker finishing. Big, big difference. And now it does get complicated again, because the reason the bunker goes on the outside is not because the Terrans are all willy-nilly like, oh, I defeat this, no problem. It's because then it protects the production, in which you need. Otherwise, the Roach Ravager can just poke. And this is a Speedling follow-up, actually, which Maru might not be anticipating. He might be thinking, okay, once again, I've basically defended against this, and this guy has to be macroing behind it, like he did in that game 2, was it? Which is not the case. After this supply block, this Overlord actually going to live, so yeah, not supply blocks. The amount of Lings spilling forth will be quite intimidating. Now, I think Maru is aware of the possibility And he also wants to stop the Roach Ravager from harassing his barracks anyway. So he's just used his army to do that instead of a bunker. He also wants to see if there are lings building up. The Reapers didn't see it. The scan does not see it. Is Maru actually in trouble? That tech lab looks like a goner to me. Only a matter of time. Only one bunker available. Definitely would feel better about having 2 of them. The Reapers are going to scout the lack of the 3rd hatch on the right side, but they don't know about the left quite yet. Tech lab does go down, going to be rebuilt. It is a faster building, but it's, you know, it's not exactly healthy, so yeah. And the Lings still have not gone for the killing blow. Now, that's been limited production from Maru for a while with 2 barracks under fire, but he's got 2 more on the high ground. Definitely a wise decision in this type of game. Ling's still not going after it, and now the Reaper has confirmed this is a complete all-in. Another bunker is on the way as soon as he confirmed that, and he is trying to make a kind of pseudo wall, kind of make those Lings go through a choke, and that will be at least successful. The Lings will not get us around on the bunker. The Ravagers will not target it either. Targeted the heart of the army, but Maru was paying attention, and he did just split away from it. And Maru, I think, has gotten enough time to defend against this. He still has 2 barracks, well, 3 technically, building. This 4th one just lifted. Again, the semi-wall, kind of good enough for now, just about making a choke for the Lings. And the Lings do have easy access to the main base, and that is a problem. But is it a big enough problem? Well, the SCVs aren't being pulled particularly quickly, so I'd say it's starting to be a problem. But 2 bunkers holding the natural. Maybe 1 bunker soon. And the Lings will be killed on the main base. The SCVs should probably just try and live. And 11 SCVs do go down. That still is not enough. And Dark, actually, with no more Lings to send on through, does tap out, acknowledging the situation. He would have had to have killed every SCV in the main base to begin to macro, actually. Every SCV in the main would be what? 18? 16? 19? Maybe 19 because he had 1 gas mining. And even then, with 8 additional SCV kills, it still would not be enough when Maru has 2 mules and the bigger, better army. So yeah, Dark not able to succeed, and I guess Maru was just being as patient as possible in his defense to not completely screw it up. So yeah, I am a little surprised that Dark keeps going for this build against the Turax, but I'm sure he does catch people even more off guard, and he catches people maybe even more overconfident. But Maru did handle that about as perfectly as you would want. So that means we're going into a Game 7. And now the series is tied 3-3. As we head into Babylon for Game 7. In the bottom right for DKZ, he is Dark. And in the top left, we have Onside Gaming's Maru. Dark trying to get that cheese going kind of again. Because I think most of us would call a 2-base Ling Baneling bust a cheese. But it could have been a reaction to the situation, in which case it's a little... It is still a cheese, but it's a little weirder, I guess. More excusable, I suppose. But that's last game. Dark was just looking to go ahead and get the series done and dusted. If you've got that game to kind of spare, quote unquote. I mean, certainly something that Dark especially will try to do. Definitely a very cutthroat type of player. No mercy. But I just don't have a lot of confidence in the early Roach bust against the Terran player. But again, I'm sure Dark's caught a lot of Terran players off guard. They scouted even a little bit later than those Reapers did. And then the lack of the bunker confuddles some poor Terran who's not really comfortable without it. They don't follow up with additional 2 barracks, so they have a factory that's producing only 1 Cyclone that maybe gets caught. They don't build a second bunker. They don't know it's a Ling follow-up. Is I think especially the dangerous part right there. And then they just let the Lings surround them and get the bunkers killed. Like, there's definitely a lot of ways that the Terran player can screw up the defense. No doubt about that. Which is why I also put this opener, although it's not the 2-Rex this time, but I put the 2-Rex opener as actually a very difficult one to replicate for us mere mortals. It's definitely a higher skill floor, if you want to call it. But Maru, clearly a good player, has also definitely more identified with the build too. So it's not him just being like, oh, I think this is a kind of a cool thing, let me try it out. Oh no, run all in, I don't know what to do against that. Like, clearly the Terran players are all practicing this all the time against everything. So Dark would have had to have been, I mean, kind of frankly a little bit luckier I guess, to actually get such an easy win. And Maru is once again going to go ahead and one racks expand with a blind bunker, which I guess he just does, which actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, you are not SCV scouting. You have one barracks with a production and a low grounds wall that wouldn't be complete without the bunker. So, yeah, I was maybe thinking a little too much Inception style in that second game when the answer is actually very simple. She's like, well, I need a wall and I don't know what's going on, so a bunker it is. And that bunker was definitely, I mean, potentially life or death. It was definitely helpful in that second game where Dark tried to roach bust him yet again. The follow-up here is a 4 racks. So even though the Reaper aggression doesn't start the harassment, or the, really this is going to be just straight up aggression. Not to be repetitive, but yeah. The Reaper harassment won't start the aggression, but there is a lot of aggression on the way. And, you know, this was the first way of seeing the 4 racks when it was popular for a while. We did see the high ground 1 racks expand lead into the 4 racks. So this isn't, this actually isn't new. It just is the difference of the natural being set up already. So Dark's gonna have trouble scouting this because a Marine is patrolling against his overlords, but he's not even trying to scout it right now. His scouts, he knows, is gonna be when the army moves out, and that's just something that Zerg players have had to accept. And Dark going for roaches should safeguard him against this. Now, he did kind of mess up his defense against this build against Bjorn in the first GSL season this year. Well, first he did fine against it, and then he messed it up. I don't know what happened, but you know, he made the roaches too late. And with the amount of Marines that do get pumped out with this, if you only have 5 roaches instead of 9 or whatever you have to have, I mean, you can die. So that's really the most important part, is that he figures this out as soon as possible, which will be with the Overlord, and then he builds roaches in time to defend. And then we talk about whether or not he's too busy building army and not enough drones and so on and so forth. Maru, not yet moving out. There we go. Stim combat shield's finishing up. Now it's time to move out. Overlord will see this, or will it? Or will it? Of course I won't see it. It's very easy to dodge it. So a Ling will have to see it, and it is a slow Ling. But, you know, slow Ling will still see it. There we go. Good job, slow Ling. Roaches were already on the way, as this is probably the timing of which the players now are very aware of. Could be the 4 racks follow-up. And then just add a couple more now that you've got that confirmation, and maybe you should have a defense. Well, the queens bunched up together, some with transfuses. I think this will be good enough. Well, Maru pull the trigger. Yes, he will. It's gonna go up that ramp. The queen's a little off to the side. Might actually be the reason that Maru finds the damage here, although it takes him a long time to actually kill these damn things. The queens were close enough to get some transfuses, and the roaches are kind of bricks. They take some time to kill. And now the Marines are now desperately going into the main base. Main base under fire. How many drones will go down? 6. Hard to say that was worth it. Now it's 6 drones, 3 roaches, and 3 queens. So in terms of the resource trade, it's almost perfectly even. This gas is a bit more of an expensive resource. A rare resource? I don't know how you want to put that. I say expensive. I mean, it's maybe Maru favored. A little, like tiny bit. It's actually very hard to tell. Usually it's a little more clear cut. Either the Terran player dives and they kill everything and they win. You're like, oh, that was easy. Or they don't dive, and then it's more of the, you know, the drone enough implication thingy. But with that type of attack, personally, I'm not convinced it was worth it for Maru. But then his follow-up still has so much potential. He's rebuilding his army. He's getting back out on the map. He's definitely not going to die anytime soon, because Dark is not going for a 1-1 roach attack. He's out on Infestation Pit, Bailey Nest, Speedling upgrade. Dark is supply blocked. He's been supply blocked for a little while. And that's also why the supplies are so close too, which is again what's making me like, it's not super clear cut. If there's a 50 supply gap, I'd be certainly in Dark's corner, but one of the reasons there isn't is that he is investing so much into this technology. That's a lot of technology to be investing into. So that means he's well set up for the late game. And if Maru doesn't have an attack to hit him before he's actually set up, well, then Dark is in a really great position. And it looks like Maru's not hitting him before he's set up. 30TC's on the way, floating on over. Upgrades are not very impressive. Dark will have a composition that will also buy a very good amount of time. Corrosive Bile, Fungal, threaten with the Banelings, you know. Yeah, no, Dark actually, assuming that he handles the follow-up push really well, should have a wonderful time. And I think he figured that as well, I think. And that's why he was like, yeah, just go for it. Just go for all the technology. Do all the things. And that means that Maru, if he does move out, might be moving out into a very efficient Zerg army. Oh, he got fungled. Fungled and destroyed. Oh, he tried to save one Marine. Almost lost the medevac in the process. And if he's not going to be able to push out again, like then he's either screwed or he's going to have to play a late game in which he will not be the best setup for it because he went for an 8 racks instead of a 4th command center. Maru going to have to actually kill Dark in the next minute and a half, I would say. And he's not even attacking a hatchery as of yet. Dark might have made the perfect response post 4 racks attack. Diving towards that technology, giving him access to the Vipers that will slowly but surely take out the tanks. I'm not sure he's ready to engage without those Vipers, but he is just trying to buy further time. Where are the Infestors as well? There's only 2 of them, and I guess they've already used their Fungal, so yeah, they're not here to help out. Dark gonna sacrifice that 5th base for the greater good. He is rebuilding it's a 4th and a 5th down to the bottom left, of which Maru will not be able to pressure for some time. He might send a medevac drop over there, but a lot of times you are just so dedicated to this push that you actually rally non-stop to the push itself. Accidental Swarm Host. Uh-oh. Just kidding. Easy mistake to make. But what is to be very careful is not to make the overextension mistake. Whenever the Baneling count gets low, those Marines that are left over are now potentially game ending. And Dark just moved in like that to kill a couple of tanks, but now he's very low on Banelings indeed. The amount of Marines left over is still pretty insane. Fungals do come in to try and save the day, but another base will have to be sacrificed. And perhaps Dark, well, first of all, maybe needed more Banelings. Faster reinforcements, but then also maybe I shouldn't have moved up that ramp like that. I mean, he did tear down some of the tanks, but maybe that wasn't worth it. There's still so much bio left over. Dark supply not looking so hot here. He is trying to get up to an Ultralisk Cavern. He's trying to finish up his upgrades, but he is low on the Banelings that he needs. Blinding Clouds do come down, take 2 of the tanks out of the equation. The Marine numbers are starting to thin out here, and the tanks are killed, and the medevacs are also out of juice. Maru a little too split up here. He's gonna have to consolidate his Marine forces and hope that they can win over the rest of the Zerg army, which is Ling Roach, barely even any Ravagers, but it will be enough. Maru not able to break through, and Dark now has time to recover. Unfortunately, that was the do or die moment, I believe. Dark has a +2 Carapace now. His Ultralisk Cavern is going to finish. He's still on 4 bases mining with 67 drones. He still has a couple of spellcasters in his pocket, couple of Vipers, couple of Infestors. And what he needs to do is just, I would say build up Banelings and Ravagers, right? The better units to really have the ultimate army. But the fact that he has basic units with spellcasters is already pretty freaking good. Maru is going to try and macro out of this kind of. 4th CC will be his main command center lifted. But he is up against a very powerful Zerg. If Dark hadn't double expanded to the bottom left and he's only on 3 base mining, hardly that. This definitely could have been an issue. I mean, seriously, think about how much Dark could have been able to afford if he didn't have this entire saturated mineral line. And he was just oversaturated every which way we looked. I actually believe that Maru absolutely could win at that point, but Dark did double expand to the bottom left. Was mostly wise about his sacrifices of his hatchery and the movement of his army. I say mostly wise because that was maybe a bit sketch, but he held on. He also has already replaced the Baneling nest at the very least. Yeah, because he noticed that was going to die. Didn't replace the Infestation Pits, but the Infestors aren't the most important thing. I mean, I think they're helpful, but they're not the most important thing. Both armies are almost maxed out once again. Dark was trying to scout, you know, for the 4th base, and whether or not it was a real 4th base or not able to get that scout. Just sees a, you know, decent Terran army, but it really is decent. This army would usually have 2-2 and a couple more tanks, and instead it's 1-1 with 2 tanks, or 3 tanks, sorry, but when they siege up, they're underneath the blinding clouds, so they're not particularly effective. Everything going down for the Terran here. Liberators will get a couple of shots off, but the Ling Baneling crashes through, and Dark will win Game 7 of the KSL Summer Slam Grand Finals. And with that, another good series against Maru, too. So there's a lot of prestige in this. And Dark just managing to be such a punch-in-the-face type of Zerg player. His insistence upon Roach Ravager, I think, can also kind of screw up expectations from some Terrans. And, well, he had some excellent defense in a lot of these games, too. His splits of his defensive army was actually quite remarkable in some of the first games of the series. And that is it for the best of 7, guys. If you enjoyed the cast, please like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. But especially if you like the content, make sure to support Korean StarCraft League. They do also have the weekly tournaments on Friday nights, Eastern Friday night. So that'll do it. Hope you guys enjoyed my cat in the last couple of games. We'll go ahead and end with just the cat. I don't have just the cat. Sorry, guys. So we'll just go ahead and end with a solid goodbye. Have a good rest of your day. I'll see you for more StarCraft very soon.